Thank you. All right, good evening. We're going to begin here shortly. If you can ensure your cell phones are off or on silent, and council members ensure your microphones are turned down. I should have had one pot of coffee today. Not enough.
It's never enough.
No brownies. All right, good evening. Today is December 2nd, 2024. Today is a committee of the whole meeting of Barberton City Council. It is 6 p.m. Before we begin our committee of the whole meeting, we do have individual committee meetings this evening, and we'll start with Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting with Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to call the Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting Committee to order. It is Monday, December 2nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Everybody on the committee is here except for Councilman Harris, and the rest of council is here as well, and people on my sheet. We don't have anything for requested legislation right now, nothing pending. So I'll move into miscellaneous discussion, and I wanted to ask Mr. Tiadecki about the water line replacement, how that is going on Worcester Road West.
Sure. Actually, tomorrow there is a kind of a pre-construction kickoff meeting with ODOT, the city, and the contractor to discuss the progression of the job. They are starting hopefully this week on it. I'll find out more tomorrow on that, but they've been authorized to order materials and so forth for the job, and this should fit right into the progression of when they're on the north side of the road working. That's the side the water line will go in, so that should be part of their progression, kind of like last time. They had a train of doing the underground and digging the road and then putting back the concrete, so through the winter they should be able to make some good progress on that. So, and then the Newell Street project, we're trying to set up a kickoff pre-construction meeting on that. We're talking and working with the contractor again so they can get the long lead items like the poles and the signal equipment. And we're working this week with the school and the gas company on some of the relocation work. They're going to be doing some test holes out there tomorrow for a couple hours and taking apart of a lane, but keeping traffic open. So we're working with everybody on that too.
Thank you so much. Are there any other people that would like some discussion to be talked about? I saw you. Okay.
Mr. Tiadecki, what's a test hole?
So they're going to bring out a drill truck and just dig down a small little hole to test the soils underneath where they're going to put the water line, just to make sure there's no surprises when they dig it up and start doing the relocation.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you.
You already have the floor. You don't have to raise your hand again.
Oh, is this a different question?
Okay.
Do you know when the parklets will be taken up?
You know what? I don't. It should be pretty soon because we're going to start needing to salt. So
Okay.
thank you for reminding me. I will ask about that. Do you happen to know?
Sometime this week.
How about that timing?
Okay. Anyone else? Alrighty. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll make that second. And we are adjourned at 6:04.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mrs. Hager.
Thank you, President Greer. Environmental Health and Social Services meeting today, December 2nd, 2024 at 18:04 p.m. All members of my committee, including myself as chair, Shorter Griffin, Taylor Thompson, Dustin Greer, and all members of council are present, along with guests as noted on my sheet. We have no requested legislation, no appointments pending legislation. Is there any miscellaneous discussion from my committee or the body? From the gallery? Mayor, did you want to add anything from the health board meeting? Okay. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second?
I'll second.
And we are adjourned at 18:05.
Thank you, Ms. Hager. Next up is planning, annexation, and codes with Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes, Monday, December 2nd, 2024, 6:05 p.m. Council Chambers. The committee is present with the exclusion of Councilor Harris. Is Councilor Thompson, President Greer, and myself as chair. And we do have something tonight. Letter from Mayor William Judge and Law Director Lisa Kolish-Miller requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 65, 2009 regarding the rental registration program. One reading and emergency wording is requested. Did everybody get to peruse the changes on that? Mayor, would you like to comment on any of the highlights of it or anything?
Been working, as you mentioned, with the law director on this. I would say the better part of our property maintenance violations and building code violations are rentals. There's some very good landlords, but there's some very bad landlords as well. We want to make sure that we can address property maintenance issues as quickly as possible. And this kind of gives us more teeth to do that. I think it tightens up some things. You put legislation together, and then it looks good on paper. Once it gets into real world, you see what kind of changes you may have to tweak to make it run a little more efficient or effective. So I think this does that.
And I noticed, did I see in there that part of the registration fees will go to carbon monoxide detectors for the units?
Yes.
Is that something that they just come to the city and say, I'm on the rental registration list, I want them?
Well, we would know that they're on the rental registration, that they're paid up to date. And yes, there would be a separate fund that would have money from the rental registration fees collected for carbon monoxide detectors. The fire department would install them. Make sure they're installed properly.
Great. Are there any questions from the body? From the gallery? President Greer.
Just for clarification, the fee increase, what was the fee increase for the rental registrations?
I believe 200. And then the ones that are still grandfathered in good standing remain?
$20?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
With that, we have no other requests, no appointments. Our director's here. Anything? Nothing? Okay.
Nothing.
Anything from the body? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:08.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. Last but not least, Finance and Personnel. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. It is Monday, December 2nd, 2024, 6:09 p.m. here in Council Chambers. All members of the committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mr. Heidick, Mr. Griffin, and President Greer. All other council members are present with the exception of Mr. Harris, as well as guests as noted on my sheet. We have a few requests for legislation. The first being a letter from Lisa Kolish-Miller, Law Director, requesting legislation to apply for a grant through the Barberton Community Foundation in the amount of $2,000 to host a leadership involvement fair in February of 2025. Emergency wording is requested. Are there any questions about this from the body? Yes.
I don't have any questions, but I just am excited for this because I feel like it's been a year-long conversation about the need for some fresh leadership and how do we do that. So I like this initiative, Law Director.
Thank you. Does you want me to tell you what we've done and what we're working on?
I would love to hear about that.
Okay, all right. So about a year ago, Melanie Amato from Main Street Barberton and I started talking, and she expressed some frustration that it seemed like the same faces were appearing everywhere. And how do we change that? And so we I just started gathering people who had leadership roles, but maybe not in a traditional sense of what we would see in our community, like not in Kiwanis or not in elected positions. So I'm surely going to forget some of the folks, but I'm going to try to tell you who they were. So it's Melanie, myself, Sarah Sabaticki, who is heavily involved in youth sports and cheerleading, Lisa Davenport and Scotty McQuaid from Barberton Tree, Jolise Rogers, who is a teacher at Akron Public Schools and also has a small business on the side. Justine Little, she's married and I cannot recall her married name. And I think there are a few more folks I just can't, no, wait. Yes, there are. I'm seriously not grasping that right now. Josh Trokey from White Rabbit and, say that again, Pedal Stomper Productions. So those are the people that I can recall off the top of my head. So we started meeting and we started thinking, how could we do this? And so we first came up with the idea of having kind of like a Leadership Akron Light, like a 6-month process where you gather people and you teach them things like different levels of community involvement and how to be a treasurer and how to be on a board and all that. And we were very ambitious and we thought we could get this done, and Josh wrote some great curriculum. And then we just kind of sat there and went, oh my gosh, we'd have to find the actual people to do those things. Like, who would be the person who would teach fiscal boardsmanship? I don't know how to do that. And so we got a little overwhelmed. So we thought that the culmination of that classwork would be an involvement fair. And then Melanie and I one day just talked and said, how about if we flip it? How about if we do an involvement fair first and invite people? So here's what our plan is that we've identified about 50 plus organizations in the city. That includes city council, the mayor, me, Jeremy. Those are all things you could become a part of. Planning commission, Board of Zoning and Building Appeals, but then we moved outward, right? Kiwanis, Rotary, youth, all the youth sports, wrestling, football, cheerleading, baseball. The library has a board. I mean, we have about 50 plus organizations that we've identified just on our own. And I've of course asked a lot of people, and so did other people on our group. So what we're going to do is we're going to invite those groups to a venue. Owls has donated their venue. It'll be on a Sunday. There's actually a date. I want to say February 25th. If that's a Sunday, from like 2 to 4. So we're trying to be accommodating to people who might work evenings or who have kids in sports or other activities. And this would be a time because we're really trying to target those established leaders. So for example, there are definitely retired, I'm going to use this as an example, retired fire leadership and retired police leadership. They're definitely established leaders, but not sure that they've ever done anything outside that I personally know of outside of there, but maybe would be willing to participate that way. So, and then we've also identified what we would call emerging leaders, like people who we've seen do some things that are leadership like, but maybe aren't really thinking they could do this, and of course they can. And then again, we're also of course going to be the established leaders, the very established leaders hopefully will be at the participating organization groups, and encouraging people to participate that way. So that's our idea. We have a list. I've been asking people, we have a list of about 300 identified emerging or established leaders, but it's going to be publicized so anyone can attend. But we want to specifically target people that we think, and by we, I mean our group, which isn't exclusive or, we were hand selected by ourselves. So that's our idea. We're very excited about it, and it's been a year in the making, and so that's what we decided to do. So, and then we were encouraged by the foundation to apply for a small grant to cover, anything we might need, like table rental or, that sort of thing. Years and years ago, the Community Foundation did a Leadership Akron Light kind of thing for people in the community, but they only take about 10 to 15 folks. And that's just not, we just felt that wasn't broad enough, one. And two, there's a cost to that. And while when I went to Leadership Akron, which is expensive, my employer covered that cost. Many folks in this town don't have employers who would be willing to invest that kind of money on something that's very local. So we are not in opposition of the foundation. They're excited about this. They want to maybe reignite the leadership program that they do, but this is kind of very different. It's not the same thing.
Well, sorry. I love this. I think it's a great idea. Like you said, there's a lot of people that want to get involved but just don't know how. So to kind of have everything, all the information there, they can talk to people and see, where they might fit in. I think that's a great thing. So this will be great.
Yeah.
Ms. Gerhart, did you have something else to add?
Pretty much exactly what you just said. I love this idea. And then if you could let us confirm the date and just so we
The
can help.
Yeah, the 23rd is a Sunday. so that's
23rd?
probably what
Thank you.
you're-
Okay.
Yeah.
Help
We were
spread
trying
the
to
word and
avoid-
invite people.
March Madness and Super Bowls and all the other things, and that was about February was the month I thought would work the best.
Yeah, I'm very encouraged by this.
Yep. Do you have a time by chance? Or?
It would be like 2 to 4. We think that that's a time that would avoid dinner, it would avoid church, it would be a time that it wouldn't be dark yet. Just a time that you could park downtown easily at that time of day. There's a parking lot, the newly improved one behind. So,
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, can I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright. Next, we have a letter from Steve Iono, Chief of the Fire Department, requesting legislation to appropriate $894.40 from Gov Deals and SA Recycle to the Fire Department operating budget. Emergency wording and one reading requested. Is there any remarks about this request? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
All right, second.
I'll second.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
We do have pending, although it's not on here. We've got ordinance number 112-2024, title non-bargaining personnel policy, an ordinance adopting a new non-bargaining personnel policy 2025, and repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith. No emergency wording. We had the first reading last week, and we'll be reading again next week. Are there any remarks regarding this legislation? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and open it up for miscellaneous. From the bodies. Anything from the gallery? Mr. Flaker, do you have anything? All right. Well, with nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you. In a second.
I'll second.
All right. We are adjourned at 6:19.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our individual committee meetings for this evening. With no objection, I'd like to roll right into the committee of the whole. All right. Today is December 2nd, 2024. This is the committee of the whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 6:20 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, citizens addressing council. I didn't get a chance to get out there, but I will. Anyone addressing council this evening? All right. Seeing none, we'll go into the committee reports. And We will start with street, sidewalk, and lighting. Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to report, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Hager.
Thank you, President Greer. Like Mrs. Beck, I have nothing to report, and I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Hager. Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes is calling for the following. Legislation to amend Ordinance 65-2009 regarding the rental registration program. One reading, emergency wording requested. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation with Mr. Cheatham. However, Mr. Cheatham was absent, and I believe Ms. Gerhardt is going to.
Okay. The City Properties, Parks, and Recreation did not meet on November 25th. Thus, we have nothing to report this evening, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cheatham. Thank you, Ms. Gerhardt. Public Welfare and Safety, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris is absent, and Ms. Gerhardt.
The Public Welfare and Safety Committee has nothing to report this evening, Mr. President, and with that, I pass.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gerhardt.
You're welcome.
Again, one more time. Rules, Marketing, Development, Ms. Gerhardt.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules, Marketing, and Development Committee has nothing to report this evening, and that is my final pass.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhardt.
You're just doing it all.
City Utilities,
covered.
Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met on November 25th, 2024. All members of my committee were present. We had no new legislation to call for, but in the miscellaneous discussion, we did talk about the dangers of leaves and grass in the roadway that ends up in our sewer system. So we would encourage everyone to dispose of their leaves and grass in the proper manner so they won't end up in our drainage system. So the meeting was adjourned at 6:08 p.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Finance and Personnel, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, on November 25th, Council passed 6 pieces of legislation. That would be ordinances 108, 109, 111, 114, 115, and 116, 2024. This evening, we are calling for 2 new pieces of legislation. The first being a request from Lisa Miller, our law director, requesting legislation to apply for a grant through the Barberton Community Foundation in the amount of $2,000 to host a leadership involvement fair in February 2025. Emergency wording requested. And then we also have a request from Chief Iono to appropriate $894.40 from Gov Deals and SA Recycle to the Fire Department's operating budget. Emergency wording and 1 reading requested. We do have 1 piece of pending legislation as well, which is Ordinance 112, 2024, regarding the non-bargaining personnel policy 2025. This evening, we adjourned at 6:19, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our committee reports. Is there anything from the body? All right. I have nothing other than hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Time is now to check your tires and get your car ready because the weather is here. Winter has arrived.
And your battery.
Anything from department heads? All right. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank everyone who volunteered or attended the Christmas walk this past weekend. Despite the cold, it was a great turnout. A lot of people, a lot of excitement. Excitement on top of just moving around at a fast pace to stay warm. But a lot of great things going on downtown. With the cold weather, we're keeping an eye on that, checking with all the nonprofits in town, the schools, and the different organizations to make sure, if there's anyone that needs help, that we can be there to try to address whatever issues people are facing. Just keeping those lines of communication open. Once the temperature gets to a certain point, we'll open up warming centers. So we'll have that word spread out so anyone can make use of it. We're continuing our collection of non-perishables and toiletries during December and January. All donations will go to Backham and the Salvation Army. If you wish to make a financial donation, please make checks out to Barberton Salvation Army or Backham. December 11th, here in this room from 5 to 6:30, we'll have our first community engagement capital improvement night with the public to talk about capital projects, kind of go over what a capital project is defined as, and then get some feedback from residents. Department heads will be there as well to answer questions and talk. Continuing with the budget and planning meetings for next year. So with the first of the year ending up on the middle of the week, probably won't get actuals until that Friday or the week after. So we'll start plugging those in and start getting everything working so we can get a budget to council as soon as possible. If you saw your email today from Mr. Shreve, he also asked that if you have roads to be considered for next year, please get those in by the end of this week. I think he said Thursday, so we can get estimates on that and start comparing lists and get something a little more viable to our consultants to kind of price out. And then just lastly, I have open office hours this Saturday at the Active Adult Center from 9 a.m. till 11. Any questions? All right, thank you.
No, I'll throw one out.
Yes, sir.
I can't let you not have a question. Let's see. Oh, why is that building still next door?
We are because we're still working through the legal process before it's taken down.
Any time frame?
I would say before, is it Mr. Teodecki, is that May? The date in May is the deadline to spend the demo money on the Masonic Temple?
I don't remember what the date is up.
I believe it's May to spend the money. So have to go through the removal of the asbestos. We are looking to anything that can be salvaged. We'd like to take out and use in the new buildings, right? Also like to auction off anything that can be auctioned off, less going to a landfill. At that point, is there any deconstruction that can happen? Again, less going to the landfill. Habitat does that. So there's a few steps before we get to the actual demolition. But cold weather will not stop the demolition of a structure. If that puts your mind at rest for the next few months.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Heidick inspired me to come up with a question, since I rarely do that. Is there any update on the Magical Marketplace, getting that historical credit?
Nope.
Okay.
We'll find out sometime here this month.
I knew we were getting close to finding out. Okay.
So nothing as of today.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 6:28 p.m. Thank you.